Hi, I'm Magician Mike Rose, and welcome to today's installment of Let's Learn Magic at the Library. Normally, I'm out performing shows. That's what I do for a living. I'm a magician. And often after a show, someone will come up to me and say, "How did you do that?" Well, you probably know the general rule for magicians is they never tell their secrets. It's true, they don't. But they do publish them. It's true. You can find secrets to magic at the library. But today, you're going to learn it right directly from me. I'm going to show you a magic trick and then teach you how to do it. Now, the magic tricks I'll be teaching all use simple objects you probably have around your house already. If not, they're very easy to find. The first thing we're going to be learning today is of some magic using 2 pieces of string. Now the strings are kind of small because they're string, so we're going to come in close so you can see exactly what's happening. We're going to come down here and take a close-up look at my table. Here we are down at the table. Now you can see the 2 pieces of string are just your basic cheap hardware store string, just made out of cotton, nothing fancy about them. One though is a little bit longer than the other one. Did you notice that? It's a little bit longer, not a lot, but a little bit. And here's the strange part. If you take the 2 pieces of string and squeeze the ends, snap your fingers, perhaps say a magic word or 2. Do you know any magic words or 2? Well, we'll have to look some up. And the ends of the string somehow melt together and become one long piece of string. Nothing to hide in the hands. As a matter of fact, you can even perform this in someone else's hand. Now it's time for the secret. Now, it is really just ordinary string and you don't need anything else. But it's a special kind of string. Although it's available at the hardware store, it's very cheap string. What's special about it is that it's not synthetic. It's made out of just normal cotton. So it's actually the cheapest kind of string you can get. And the string is made up of several fibers twisted together. If I fray the ends a little bit, you can see they're just fibers all twisted together. That's the important feature about the string. You have to find string that's made from a bunch of little fibers twisted together. Again, it's very common. It's sold in a roll like this. It's this cheap string. It's like $1 for a roll. It's enough to last you a lifetime. But there's some preparation. Before you perform the trick, you have to secretly set the string in a certain way. And here's how. You grab the string somewhere around the center, not exactly the center, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but right around the center with your fingers about 1.5 inches apart, just like this. Now if you twist your fingers of one hand in one direction and the fingers of your other hand the opposite direction, those fibers that make up the string start to separate. And they become individual strands that you can actually grab a hold of and pull apart. It's like you're pulling a hole in the middle of the string. And you pull them apart about 1 inch, so you've kind of created a hole in the string. And if you let go, they'll just kind of flop into these loops, like that. Then all you do is take and twist the ends of those loops so they're tight, and that makes them look like the ends of string. But really, it's one piece of string that's been reconfigured in the middle. Can you see how that is? Yeah. Now, if you hold your fingers right there where the ends are coming apart, it creates the illusion that you're holding 2 lengths of string. It looks just like 2 pieces of string, but if you lifted up your thumb, they'd see that they're actually connected right there. But this way, it looks like 2 pieces of string. Then all you have to do is place it in your hand, or better yet, somebody else's hand. And when you pull them out, so you just place it in your hand, close your hand into a fist, grab one end, and pull while you're holding onto the string with this hand. This hand holds onto the string. This hand starts to pull, and what it does is it pulls those twisted ends back into alignment, so when you pull the string out of your hand, it's just a piece of string. Somehow, 2 pieces of string have apparently turned into 1. Now again, to set it up, you just grab the centers, twist those fibers apart, pull them open so there's sort of a hole in the string. Let go so they flop into loops. Twist the loops so they look like the ends of string. And now it's reset. And I'm going to actually make the string restore itself out in the open so you can see what really happens. Normally this part would be hidden inside your hand or a volunteer's hand. And when you pull on the two ends, you can see they just get pulled back into the original position that they were in. And so when it comes out of your hand, it looks like one long string, which it really is. Now, this is amazing on its own, but it's more amazing if you have it happen in somebody's hand, like I mentioned. And there's a couple little details that you want to do. I'll set up the string again. So you got the two ends, twist them so they look like string. So you start off by showing the two pieces of string. And the reason that you set the string a little off center is so that one piece will look longer than the other, so that it's uneven. And there's some psychology in that. This is what helps fool people when you perform this trick. The secret alone is pretty cool, but if you add some little psychological touches, it makes it a miracle. And here's how. You ask them to hold out their hand, show them the two pieces of string, and say, you'll notice how one is longer than the other? And they'll admit yes, because that's what it looks like. Well, immediately they have just fooled themselves. Here's why. If you just go up to them and say, look, I have two pieces of string, they might challenge you. They might say, really? Let me see. And you can't hand them to them because then they would see you don't really have two pieces of string. So you don't make a statement that they can challenge. You make a statement that they have to agree with. So instead of saying, look, I have two pieces of string, you say, look, I have two pieces of string, and you'll notice how one is shorter than the other. Well, now they're not thinking about the number of strings. They're thinking about, is one shorter than the other? And they'll agree it is. And now they fooled themselves. Because how could there be only one string if one is shorter than the other? They've just convinced themselves there are two strings. So it's a small point, but it really helps make it more deceptive. So you show them the two strings, say, you notice how one is longer than the other? They'll say yes. Ask them to hold their hand out and place the two ends, the secretly prepared ends, on their hand. Keep your finger or your thumb over it and say, close your hand. Now, you take the risk of them possibly opening their hand and seeing that the ends are actually not what they really are. So as soon as you place the strings in their hand, tell them to close their hand, tell them to turn their hand upside down. This is a tiny point, but it's really useful. It is extremely unlikely that the person now will open their hand to peek at the strings, because to do so, they'd have to turn their hand back over and then open them. It might not seem like a big deal, but it's really human nature for somebody just to do that and peek inside their hand. But it's not normal for them to go, let me turn this over and take a look. They have to think through the whole process. So the simple act of putting them in their hand, tell them to close their hand, turn their hand upside down, gives you extra little security that they're not going to quickly open their hand and take a peek. And you keep the trick moving. You don't give them a time to sit there and think about it. You go, okay, turn your hand over, and now I'm going to grab one end in one string in one hand and one string in the other. This would be you grabbing the two ends. And you just pull the string apart. And when you pull it apart, you know from what I showed you before, they just pop into one whole string again. So they would come out one whole string. They're going to open their hand and they're just going to stare in disbelief that there's nothing in their hand. And the two strings that they were just holding are now just one string. And you can give them the string to keep. There's nothing to find out. It's just a piece of string. It's really an amazing trick. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of history on this. This is actually about 100 years old. There was a magician named Harry Keller. He was very famous at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. He popularized this trick. He actually published it in a magic magazine. Some people don't realize this, but magicians actually have their own magazines where they share secrets with each other. And they go back over 100 years. So Harry Keller published this trick, and it was a big hit. And it fools just about everybody. But then there was another magician named Germain, and he really liked the trick, but he wanted to make it a little bit more deceptive. So he came up with a variation, and I'm going to teach you the variation that you can do with the same trick. You can do what I just showed you. Start with what looks like 2 strings, put them in somebody's hand, have them turn into 1 string. That's amazing on its own. But you can take it a step further. And here's how. You set the string. Again, you do this all in private. If you do this in front of the person, it sort of gives the trick away. Duh. So anyway, you set the strings, twist the ends like before. So this is how you set it up for the first version I showed you. But for the second version, there's another step that you do. You take these ends, which are real ends. Remember, these are fake ends that you took out of the center. You take these real ends and just twist them together a little bit. Just a little bit. And you'll find that they'll actually stick together. They kind of interweave with each other. And you can hold this now. It looks like you're holding one continuous piece of string and the ends are up here. So instead of looking like you're holding 2 strings, it looks like you have 1. This was Jermaine's idea. He then would take out a little pocket knife or some scissors. I have some scissors here. And he would pretend to cut the string. To the audience, it looks like you really cut the string, but all you're doing is separating the string that's already apart, but held together. So you just go like this, and it looks like I just cut the string. Then you do the ending just like before. Either place it in somebody's hand or place it in your own hand. And when you pull the 2 ends out, it's restored into 1 piece, and you can hand them the string. They can keep the string as a souvenir. There's nothing to find. Now this uses basically the exact same secret, but it adds the little window dressing of having the scissors, because it adds another element to the magic. If you actually cut the string right in front of them and then restore it, it's different than just having 2 pieces of string that you make go together. So even though it uses basically the exact same secret, it's 2 completely different effects on the audience. So now you have a variation. And I'll tell you why it's good to have a variation. But we're going to come up here so you can see what I'm talking about. Oh, and we're back up here. So I was mentioning that it's good to have 2 versions of the same trick, because often after you perform a trick, someone will say to you, hey, do it again. And that's not a good idea, because if they just saw the trick, they know what's going to happen, and they'll look at it differently and they have a better chance of figuring out. That's sort of a cardinal rule of magic. Don't do the same trick twice for the same audience, at least not immediately. Wait a couple of days and you can maybe show them the same trick again then. But the neat part about the string trick is that you can show them 2 versions. So that way it throws them off the trail. It looks like 2 completely different tricks to them, even though it uses the same secret. So the first time you might show them the version where you have just 2 strings and they go together while they're in their hand. Then a couple days later, if they want to see a trick, you can say it, show them again, but show them the version that looks like you have 1 long string that you cut with scissors and then restore it. So to them, it's like, it's a similar trick, but it's different, because before you didn't cut it. This time you cut it right in front of them. So that helps to throw them off the trail of figuring out the secret. But there's another important rule I want to tell you, and that is practice. When you're first learning a magic trick, it's normal to mess it up the first couple of times you do it, because you're not used to it. It's kind of like playing an instrument. If you've ever played an instrument before, you know that just because they tell you how to play it doesn't mean you immediately can. You have to practice it. Well, it's the same with magic tricks. Even though the secret might be fairly simple, you still have to practice it. And it helps if you do a little practice in front of a mirror, because that way you can see it from the same angle that your audience will see it from. So if you're holding up the strings and you look into the mirror, you're seeing it from the front. So you know exactly what your audience will see. But don't use the mirror all the time. Just use it at the beginning when you're first learning the trick to understand how it's going to look. Because if you use it all the time, then you get sort of reliant on the mirror. And when you go to perform the trick, it's going to feel different to you because you're not looking at it in the mirror. So just use the mirror at the beginning, and then once you start practicing without the mirror, it'll be much easier. Well, that's about it for today. I really appreciate you watching Let's Learn Magic at the Library. There's going to be a couple of these this summer at the library, so I hope you check out the library's events page and find out the dates and times when they'll be airing. Each time you're going to learn an entirely new magic trick. But that's it for now. I've been Mike Rose. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you next time.